Particular video, I'll be talking about a common question I get, which is, do you need a bachelor's degree to become an airline pilot? Now, just to tell you a bit about myself, I grew up in Nigeria, moved over here in 2010. Before coming over here, I'd already gotten my bachelor's degree. Now, I chose to become an airline pilot because it has always been a dream of mine to become one. I have worked with a lot of people, some that do have a bachelor's degree and some that do not. And I'll be talking about the pros and cons from experience, not just from my own personal experience, but from other people's experiences. And I would share, my thoughts about it. If you're new on my channel, my name is Stephen Ojo. I hope you stick around by subscribing and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up as well. Now, here's a question I believe you should start asking yourself if you're currently thinking of becoming an airline pilot. Question is, what are your goals? What do you plan to do? And why do you think you should get a bachelor's degree? Because like we all know, it's very expensive to get both of them. I mean, there's some people that have the two, there's some that would just have a bachelor's degree and they would not go ahead to become a pilot because they chose to take that route. That's what they prefer. And there's some people that would obviously try to get it too, and there's some that would just go with the pilot's license because that's just their dream, that's what they want to do, and there's nothing wrong with any of these choices. So let's talk about my experience. What have I seen and what is the common trend? Now, the thing is, a lot of pilots do have bachelor's degree. When I say a lot, majority of pilots do have a bachelor's degree. At least some of them do have master's degree and very few do have a doctorate degree, and the benefits vary, and the reason why you probably choose to have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree also varies. Sometimes it's just personal interest. Some people just like to stay in the field of education where they want to acquire more qualifications, and there's nothing wrong with that. But here's also the thing that you need to think about. Obviously this comes at a cost and also time. So let me talk about the first one. If you're thinking of getting your bachelor's degree and you haven't gotten your pilot certificate yet, what should you do and which one is the best one to go for at the beginning? Now, the truth is, it really depends on your personal situation and your finances as well, because we know that these two can get really expensive. As we know that flight training nowadays can go from 50,000 at the minimum to 100,000 plus. Getting a bachelor's degree also can go from that range of 30s to maybe 70,000 and above as well. And getting these two at the same time can get really expensive, that some people spend over 200,000 in training and also getting a bachelor's degree. So this leads us to that question, do you need a bachelor's degree? The answer to this question all depends on where you want to end up. So let's assume that you are an international student like I was, and you plan to go back to your home country. Well, you have to look at the requirements for your airline or your desired airline that you want to work for in the future after you get your bachelor's degree or after you get your pilot license. Majority of the international airlines do not require that you have a bachelor's degree. All they need is your experience, some high school qualification, and tons of hours to get hired with them. And of course, some other requirements that I won't be covering in this video. But when it comes to the United States, here are the questions that you want to ask yourself. If you want to work for a major airline, there are about 5 or so major airlines in the United States. We're talking about Delta, United, American, we're talking about FedEx, UPS. Out of these 5 major airlines that I've just mentioned, 2 of them do not require that you have a bachelor's degree. The rest do require that you have one. They do not require that you have a bachelor's degree, but they always prefer. Now, mind you, when I say prefer, that means that they might not state it on their requirements, but they actually do prefer that you have some qualification as well, because that makes you generally a well-rounded pilot. When I say well-rounded pilot, it's not just about the qualification, but also your dedication to pursue a degree and complete it. It's more about the discipline, not necessarily the degree itself, because you can get your bachelor's degree in anything, even with all these major airlines that I mentioned, and that doesn't really give you an upper hand, whether you did it in physics or you did it in English. It doesn't matter. The point is you have a 4-year college degree. That's all these major airlines care about. So in order to answer the question, if you need one, it all depends on where you want to end up. If you want to end up with a major airline or any of these major airlines that I mentioned that require it, then you will have to get it. But if you want to just be an airline pilot and work for any airline out there, just fly airplanes, then you do not require it. Now, let's assume that you want to get your bachelor's degree and you're trying to figure out how to pace yourself in terms of the cost of getting your bachelor's degree and getting your flight training done. Here's a suggestion I have. Based on my experience, a lot of guys that I've flown with, they've actually chosen to go for their flight training first. And then once they join an airline and they start flying, they are able to then use the money that they make as a pilot to fund their education in their college that they choose. Now, the good thing about the job that we do is that we generally have more time, maybe towards the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, to do, schoolwork. So if you can enroll in an online program and get your bachelor's degree that way, well, in 3 to 4 years, you can get your bachelor's while you're working as a pilot. Now, the benefit of this is in twofold. The first thing is you won't have to get loans to fund your college degree, and that means you're just using the money from your work to fund your education. And the second thing is that you're also getting the experience needed to also move up in ranks or also join all these major airlines in the future while you're getting your bachelor's degree done. Give you a good scenario. If you join an airline, a regional airline, in about 2 years or so, you can actually upgrade to become a captain. And in that 2 years, assuming you start your college degree right away after you started, that means you're almost halfway done with your college degree. In the last 2 years of your college education, you are already working on getting your pilot in command time, which would make you a perfect candidate in 4 years because you would have your pilot in command time, the experience needed to join a major airline, and also you would then have your bachelor's degree as well because you've completed your 4-year education. And this just makes you a very competitive candidate once you start applying to a major airline. So what are my suggestions? Well, again, it all depends on where you want to end up. If you want to end up with an airline that does not require it, then so be it. You don't really have to do it. But know that a lot of pilots do have this bachelor's degree, and that could give them more points ahead of you, making you a bit less competitive, even though it's not a requirement in order for you to apply. And you would have to generally maybe work harder in order to get those other qualifications or other points in order to rank and get your applications pulled in order to be eligible for an interview, if that makes sense. Well, I hope I've been able to give you some information to think about as you try to decide if you want to get your bachelor's degree or not. But the goal here is to make yourself a very qualified candidate when you're trying to apply for that job that you really want.